This is Great Talks. Hola, hi guys, welcome to Great Talks, and of course, my name is Ebuka. And today's episode is very interesting to me personally because this is like a personal thing. However, I'm not going to just say it's going to be all emotional. No, 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 we're not going to do that. But it's an emotional episode for me because I'm going to be sharing something that I haven't shared lately before. Although I've said it to a few friends, but not generally. So I remember in the last episode I was saying this past few months, we had like programs, but what I did not mention was that in the midst of those programs that I had to go for, I lost two people, two loved ones close to me in the space of 2 weeks. The sad reality of life like got to me in those period, and here's what is interesting about it. I mean, aside for the fact that I don't, really show emotions like that, but here's the thing: interesting and maybe troubling per se was how I reacted or how I didn't react. Somehow, it somehow feels like people expecting a certain kind of reaction. I remember that a friend of mine always kept asking, "Okay, are you okay? Is something up? Are you fine?" Because I wasn't showing a certain level of emotions to equate it to someone who just lost two people within the space of 2 weeks. So I was like, oh, it was just, I mean, it wasn't fine per se, but just, I don't know how to explain it because here's the thing. Even my sister had to even ask me, how come you don't seem bothered? How come you don't look affected? And I think then it struck a nerve and I'm thinking to myself, okay, Ebuka, are you just being very strong or there's something wrong? So the truth is, I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel any way in the way people usually feel when they lose someone, and that sort of like raised a question inside of me where I had to ask myself if this makes me strong or does it make me carry the pain in ways that I don't know that I'm carrying, in ways that I don't realize it, or the third analysis or the third theory to is I am just a very stone cold, hard hearted human being. It could be one of those three. Either you're strong, or I'm just carrying the shackles and the pain of losing people and losing loved ones, or I'm just some very hard, strong, stone cold human being with no emotions and some maleficent kind of thing. Just that. But then I remember that this is not the first time I'm losing someone very close to me. I remember the first time I felt the pain of losing a loved one. It was in that should be 2020, I think. Yeah, around that time, 2020. That was about 5 years ago. I lost a very good friend of mine, like a brother. He was like a brother to me. And those of you that like if you knew me back then, you know how very close we were because I always talked about him and all the likes. It was so bad that I cried in that period. In that period, I cried in that period. I really cried in that period. It was so bad that I think my niece and my nephew saw me, and it was very shocking to them because they had not seen their uncle like this before. I mean, I wasn't the laughy, or the laughy type. We played and likes, but then they had not seen me in that state. I noticed that they kept on looking at me very funnily. I'm sure they must have asked their mom, "Oh, what happened?" And then their mother would have said, "Oh, he lost somebody very close, blah blah blah." But then, so you see, I'm maybe not so hard-hearted. Maybe I just realized that okay, this is part of it. So I've thought deeply about it, and part of me sees death as inevitable. It's the one appointment that every human must keep. It is appointed to man that man must die, and after death comes, the rest of the verse. So when it happens, I tell myself, just move on. And moving on seems to be part of the mindset that gives me, power. It shields me, but at the same time, I wonder if that shield is at a cost. Like I said earlier, if I'm just dragging pain or I'm just some hard guy, because maybe in teaching myself to move on quickly, in teaching myself to move on quickly, I'm also teaching myself not to hold people too close to myself. Because in truth, I'm just going to realize that, oh, if I hold anybody too close and they carry too much sentimental weight in my life, I know that easily they can be gone. So that might be trauma speaking. And in truth, that might be trauma speaking. That's the scar that loss can leave. A very quiet detachment, a refusal to feel people, a refusal to feel connected about people. I remember also a friend of mine from where I used to work, maybe not a friend, a colleague per se. In truth, I tried to get close to her. It was a female. I tried to get close to her, but then she, she sort of, she intentionally pushed. I don't know if it was intentionally or, but she was also mourning the loss of someone, and she had like a grievance with God or something, and it was a bit, it was touchy for me because I mean, no matter how much, and I think this is where the power comes in. No matter how much I feel like I've lost people, I wouldn't have lost people as much as some other person would have. It is where your own tragic moment ends. That's when another person's own starts. So I wouldn't have imagined that I've lost so much. But then I would not imagine again. I would not imagine that I've lost so much that I would go against God. So whenever I see when I heard her story, well, not necessarily her story, but when I heard her talk, and I'm thinking, okay, no, well, let's bring her to the fold. Let's talk. I'm not a very good evangelist. I can't be that, but then I just wanted her to know that God is not the reason why that person left, or God cannot be in favor of you losing your loved one. But if I know one thing for sure, whoever is going through something, that thing has a way of shaping you to be a better person. Because I remember when I lost my friend, my best friend, that person I was talking about, I remember that I felt like God was trying to teach me something with regards to that loss. I may not have known it as at that time. It was over the years that I realized what the whole connection is. I might even not know it directly, but then I know that was what was, the connection to what it was. And as a man, society reinforces the belief that you have to be strong, be a man, don't cry, endure. In fact, I remember not feeling too well, and I went to the hospital. I'm one person who doesn't like needles. I hate needles. I dread needles. Like I don't want anything breaking my skin. I hate it so much. So and it doesn't mean that if I see it, this is your reality. No matter what, the needle is going to touch your skin. But it still doesn't mean that I don't hate it. I really dread needles. So this young guy, maybe in his mid 20s or late 20s, I don't know. I sat in his lab. Of course, it was a clinic, so he was a he was a lab attendant. He was to take my samples and the like. So I sat there and he was attending to me. So the whole procedure, cutting spirits and trying to get my vein. So when he brought out the needle, I gave a scowl. And to be honest, I only just gave a scowl. I didn't say, mommy, call my mommy, why are you laughing? I didn't do any of that. I didn't do that. But then I gave a scowl, and then the next thing, I think he saw the scowl, and then the next thing he says, oh, you're a man, no? And then I just felt like giving him a huge, the way they are so close to you trying to take a sample. I felt like giving him one of those, and Schwarzenegger nod, just nod him, and then let him explain, excuse me, what you mean by I'm a man? So because I'm a man, I should not feel pain. I should not feel hurt. And when he fixed the needle, I was really calm. And all the times I've been to the hospital when I get drugs, when I get pricked, I've always been calm. I mean, I hate the fact that they have to pierce my skin with needle, but then I've always been calm. So I'm wondering, why would you tell me you're a man? Of course, I can see that. Society just tells you be strong, don't cry, endure. That sort of like reinforces. Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm trying so hard not to show emotions, of course, but then strength isn't the absence of emotions. Real strength is allowing yourself to feel, to grieve, per se, and then to heal. So in situations like that, you have to feel. When you feel exactly, you feel the reality of what is happening to you, then you allow yourself to assimilate by grieving, and then you heal. So I'm not a psychologist. I'm also not a trauma therapist, but I know that is something I looked up at some point, and then I want to share with you. In case if you're going through something, this is for you. If you're going through the loss of a loved one, if you feel like you're alone, first of all, you have to understand that God got you. God has got your back no matter what. But first, allow yourself to grieve in your own way. It could be a certain kind of expression that you have. Grief doesn't have one exact expression. You can't tell people how to grieve. I remember back then I used to say things like, "Oh, if you're coming to me with, oh, God knows best. God wanted a rose from heaven. God wanted a rose from the earth or something, flower. So he came down to pluck one. I mean, don't tell me that. Don't just come eat the thing you want to eat and go. And if you want to cry, cry. But just don't come with me with that all that stuff. Don't come with all that stuff. But then Grief doesn't have one expression. Tears, silence, writing, praying, all of them, they're all valid. So you have to express yourself, grieve in your own way. And in truth, as much as I'm saying this, maybe I didn't show to people how I felt or what I know that there were certain times when I was in myself and then I grieved it by my own way. Either through playing songs, either through praying, either, I did it my own way. I just did not show it to other people. And then talk about your pain. That's the second. Talk about your pain. You might share with someone. So silence can make the loss a lot heavier. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of people. You have to share with somebody. Your memories, your fears, what makes you numb. Something. Sometimes naming what you feel or don't feel is a step to healing. So you have to name them, or what you feel, what you don't feel. You have to have a way of expressing them where you can stay with someone who understands your silence, who understands your grief. So next would be to hold on to the meaning, not just to the memories. So sometimes when you think about the memories, it gives you a lot more grief. You want to cry, you want to get into that shell, but then hold on to the meaning of what they gave to you. So remember when I said that when my friend died, I realized that God was trying to teach me something. Same way, I still don't know what God is trying to teach me or what life is trying to teach me with the loss of these two people in my life. Also, it could also, and let's not even go all that. It could also be that their time is up and then they went. And that's the truth. That is a sad reality. That's the truth. Their time came and they went. So it might not necessarily be so much of a lesson, but then their time came and then they left. Or there's a lesson for somebody. It may not be for you. There's a lesson for some other person. And in truth, the realities of their existence was what I had already come to terms with. So when it happens, I just, okay, you know what, I expected this and the likes. So, but my concern, my conversation with you now is to hold on to meaning. Hold on to the meaning of what their existence was and what their death is, and try and see what God is trying to teach you in this period. Stay connected also. Stay connected. Isolation is I trust me, isolation is not a big deal. It's not the ideal situation, rather. It's a big deal. It's not the ideal situation. You don't have to isolate yourself. Lean on faith. Yeah. Learn to have faith, lean on faith, on communities, on relationships that remind you life is still worth engaging. I remember back then what helped me was family. Yeah, family helped me, and also some certain kind of people that I have in my life, very close friends. Give yourself permission to leave. There's a way I used to put it. It might sound very harsh, but there's a way I put it. I say the dead buries. I mean, it's also in the Bible. The dead buries the dead. The living continues to live, like that. So the best way to honor them, those that you've lost, is not to stop living, is to keep living. It was one of the things I wanted to tell that my friend, that I wanted to say to her that I'm sure that person that died, if that person were to see you or were to look at you, and they'll tell you, girl, keep living your life. You don't have to stop. I mean, sometimes I used to feel like those people who are gone, they can see the future for us, with us. Some of the things that we don't see, they can see them. So unfortunately, it was the same way Abraham and Lazarus, where they were like, oh, let me go and tell was it Abraham? Yeah, Abraham and the rich man, or Lazarus and the rich man. I can't remember. Forgive me, I can't remember. But then trying to tell them, oh, let me go and tell my brothers this. That's because they've been to the other life and then they've seen. So it's almost like, I feel like when the dead people, when they come up to us, the loved ones that we lost, when they come to us, they're like, oh, this thing that you're doing, if you know how it's going to affect you in the future, or don't stop, burying your head under the sand, stand up, move on. I feel like they would just tell us something different from what we're doing. Some of us are scowling, wailing, and other like. I feel like when they are up there, God forbid they're down there, but I'm sorry, but yeah, they're up there. They get to see you. They're like, okay, you know what? You should not be wailing. Yes, but you have to be strong. You have to move on. So I always feel like people who've gone, they always tell us. They somehow tell us in the spirit to always be better. So give yourself permission to leave. Loss has a way of reshaping us. That's the truth. It can make us cold and can make us deeper. And that's the one I'm leading into. That's the one I always prefer to lean into. Not to be cold, because to be honest, the people around you are not the reason why they died, or they are not the reason why those people are gone. However, those people around you are also trying to help you get better. So I'm still learning which way it makes me, but I know one thing for sure: Healing is not about forgetting. Healing is about carrying the memory with grace and still choosing to move forward with hope. There's always hope. There's always something to look forward to. Like I said, they will be up there cheering you up, telling you you can do this, you can keep going. And this is my message to you today. Thank you very much for listening to my emotional rants and all of that. Thank you very much. I will catch you in the next episode, and I have something very interesting coming up next. See you in the next episode. And remember, there is always more. Ciao. Hey there. You're listening to Great Talks with Ebuka.